to the right, caught over the middle, and into.
He's at the 45. Are you kidding? Oh, he's gonna go! Oh,
Brady gets hit, the ball is out. And Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk live here on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you head on over to @DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. While you're on the Twitter page, make sure you check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout tonight's show, any of our DSM pregame live shows, or any other great shows we have streaming to you guys through DSM, make sure you head on over to the YouTube channel specifically. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and it's the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up on the screen. I am one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. You can find him on Twitter as well at Scotty Drown. My man, and a very eventful wild card weekend. Can't wait to break it all down with you, but how are you feeling this Thursday?
Eager, I think is the right word. And I think if you're an Eagles fan, you probably know where I'm coming from. But
for sure,
eager to get our playoff destiny started. But nonetheless, it was a great weekend of football. A couple surprises mixed in there, a couple close calls mixed in there, which we'll get to break it all down. But not too bad, man. I'm eager and I'm happy to be here, man.
I think eager is a great word, right? Because we kind of get to sit back and relax and enjoy football for what it is, entertainment, and then obviously the stress and the anxiety and the fandom comes out this week for us. But while it's all nice and cool to sit back as the one seed, you want to be rooting for your team over the course of the weekend. So we're just over 48 hours away from the Eagles Giants matchup on Saturday night at the Link. But like I said, this is all about wild card weekend recap. So let's get into it. Dating back to Saturday, January 14th, the first game of this super wild card weekend, the Seattle Seahawks take on the San Francisco 49ers in the Bay. San Fran comes away with this one 41-23. Seattle kept it close for a while, man. They actually had the lead at halftime, 17-16. Geno Smith connected with DK Metcalf for a long touchdown down the left sideline. And you thought maybe just for a second, a thought or a moment crept into the back of your mind where can they really do this? Maybe San Fran's defense isn't that stout. Maybe they have holes. Maybe Brock Purdy can't mount a second half comeback. Well, all of those thoughts and questions were put to bed very quickly. San Fran goes on like a 25-0 run out the gate in the second half. Brock Purdy threw for over 300 yards. Christian McCaffrey had over 130 all-purpose yards. Debo had over $120, $130 receiving yards. And the defense put the clamps down on Geno Smith in the second half. Well, what were your thoughts on this win for San Fran? How impressive really was it for you?
Yeah, so I mean, it's impressive, man. You're at home, you get the win. Ultimately did it by 2 possessions, right? Double digits. So you can't ask for much more in a playoff victory. And I just think it was good for them to get that test, go into half down, right? Know what that feels like, because they have won, 11, 12 games in a row, something crazy.
I want to say 12 maybe.
Yeah, so I mean, it's good for them to kind of go through that experience. For the 49ers, I'm speaking from.
Right.
Just to experience adversity, because that's something we haven't seen Brock Purdy really go through yet, I feel. Ultimately, what I will say is we were way off, and I guess we got to stop trusting the weathermen, because they get us into some pickles, man. We were all over DK Metcalf before that game.
And we talked ourselves out of it.
We talked out of it because we heard a monsoon was coming. They're out there playing with sunshine and no muddy grass, nothing like that. Because DK Metcalf had a day, right? 136 yards. What I would say, I guess where I'll look at it from, because from the 49ers perspective, like you said, Brock Purdy throws for over 300 yards. I will say that's impressive. You got to give some credit where it's due at some point, and I feel like I haven't done that with Brock Purdy. Mm-hmm. That's impressive. In a playoff game, throw over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. No turnovers. I know I was the one that pinged him for an interception in that game. He did not throw that. He remained poised, and he did come out of that halftime and drove these guys down the field. Now, obviously, McCaffrey had a field day. Samuel had a field day. But this is what this offense is supposed to look like, right? These are the stars. Like Deebo Samuel is the wide receiver 1. CMC is arguably the best running back in the NFL. So when you look at it, it just looks like the 49ers were operating full steam ahead, right? Brock Purdy is not slowing them down. And I think that's the biggest thing from the 49ers perspective. From the Seahawks perspective, can you really be upset? Like you honestly ran into a buzzsaw. That is what it is. This is a team you saw all season as a division rival. But I mean, Geno Smith played all right. Yes, he had the interception. He was up over 250 passing yards. DK had a day. Kenneth Walker got in the end zone. Like, you put up 23 points. How many more points do you expect to put up against the 49ers if you're the Seahawks? So from that standpoint, it's interesting. I guess what I would ask you, Dylan, and maybe this is a question for the end of the show, so correct me if I'm wrong, but Geno Smith, right? He's a free agent. Like, you bring him back, right? He had a hell of a season. Like, is there a better option? Like, unless it's like Aaron Rodgers, like where do the Seahawks go? But maybe that's something we could talk about at the end when we get there.
No, it's fitting because we're talking game and moving forward with these two teams, and obviously Seattle will not be playing this upcoming weekend. Their season's over. So looking forward with Geno Smith and them, you kind of almost have to in the short term. Like this is not a Geno Smith future franchise quarterback type of situation in Seattle.
Right.
You made the playoffs this year. You overachieved my expectations and a lot of other people's expectations. You're not in position for a draft pick. Maybe you could move up and get one. I don't mind that. I don't mind a 2 to 3 year deal for Geno Smith here in Seattle. Because while you made the playoffs, they're kind of in an awkward, I don't want to call it a rebuild because it's not a true rebuild, but they're not in a retool situation either because they have so many holes. This was a very odd year for them. I thought they were going to be a bottom 5 team in the league. They ultimately make the playoffs. Geno Smith makes the Pro Bowl. I would bring them back in the short term while you fix the kinks around, and the armor around the rest of the team and get that structure down with Pete Carroll, and then move on quarterback wise in a couple of seasons, most likely, unless you have an opportunity. I wouldn't even go the Aaron Rodgers route, Scotty, because I don't think they're good enough outside of him. Like, Green Bay has a better overall team than Seattle, in my opinion. And he couldn't elevate that Green Bay team to make the playoffs above the Seattle team. So I would say unless they have the assets or the resources to move up in the top 10 and get a quarterback, that this is a great point though, Budget. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where the board falls. My pushback to them getting a quarterback this year is, like I said, you're still in a little bit of a rebuild going forward. I disagree, Phil. I look defensively. I think Green Bay has more. The running back room, they should have more. Receivers, of course, DK, Tyler Lockett. Offensive line, I would give Green Bay. The quarterback was supposed to be Green Bay. So I don't know.
It's arguable. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's fair to say that just because, like, if Green Bay won their game, they would they let the Seahawks get into the playoffs, right?
No, that is their fault. That
maybe the Lions allowed maybe you could phrase it that way. The Lions allowed the Seahawks to get in there, but the Packers at the end of the day were controlling their own destiny. They just couldn't control it. Walker, Metcalf, greater than anything Green Bay has. I mean,
offensively, skill position wise, sure, but I think Green Bay's defense, from a talent and money perspective, is greater than what Seattle has. And again, but that's the point. That's what's so weird. Seattle, in my opinion, overachieved, and Green Bay greatly underachieved throughout the regular season. So
right. I was a lot higher on Green Bay.
Yeah,
coming into this season.
One team did make the playoffs.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you it this way then. If you're Geno Smith, is there a better opportunity out there for you?
Probably not. I mean, maybe from a financial standpoint, he could go somewhere else that might just be looking for a gap stop guy.
Yeah.
But I like Geno Smith to me, albeit he had almost threw for 70% completion percentage this year, made a Pro Bowl. Congratulations to him. Geno Smith isn't elevating any roster, in my opinion. Yeah. Like Geno Smith with a better supporting cast, I don't.
What
think
about
he's
him and the Jets? Like if the Jets strike out, obviously I think the Jets are going to go after Aaron Rodgers. I think they're going to go after Lamar Jackson. They're going to go after any quarterback. That's
I don't think Geno Smith
makes
elevates the Jets. They might have they'll make the playoffs with Geno Smith. they're
But a
not making
contender,
a
no.
championship game with a Geno Smith is kind of where I'm at on Geno. I
feel you there.
don't want to call it a fluke season.
Yeah. You just don't know. You really don't know
from Geno. Dude, it's not like Geno
Yeah.
Smith's been around for a couple of years. Geno
Yeah,
Smith's
he's been in a
around
minute.
since the early 2010s. Okay, so
Yeah.
it could be.
I remember him when I was in like early college stages at WVU, like partying it up, and he was like the star quarterback. Man, I was a part of that. So yeah, I know.
You're talking almost a decade ago. But reversely, before we move on, the last thing I'll say from San Fran, I agree with you. I'm in this weird middle ground with Brock Purdy on where can I fairly judge him, because again, I don't want to take credit away. You played at home against Seattle. I had them ranked 14th in the playoff picture out of the 14 teams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he did take care of business. He did throw for 300 plus passing yards. He did not turn the ball over. So my question becomes now, how real is he, and is this offense with him at the helm compared to when they play a legitimate defense? Like when they play Dallas, this is the week. If they go in there and he takes care of business against Dallas, and we'll get into that this weekend. Now, if they have to come to the link, I'll be like, this game, obviously it's already as tough as it can possibly get. Just got a whole hell of a lot tougher because he's actually real.
This right here is a great point, Philly
I agree.
Irish. I that is so true. And what I will say to that is the same thing I said about the Sixers earlier is if he is as good as everybody says he is, then he's not due for a bad performance because you're just good. Like that is what it is, right? You're never due for a loss if you're a good team. Like you're supposed to win. You're due for a win. Like that's the way I look at it. But Brock Purdy, to answer your question, I think it's a great point. I think Cowboys, this is it. This is where we can decide, not overall, right? But just, is this real or not this season? What I saw on Twitter, I can't give them the credit because I don't remember their at name, but they called it a Jeremy Lin session, and it's very reminiscent to what Jeremy Lin did like a couple of years back for the New York Knicks, where he took them to the playoffs. It was Linsanity, and then a year later, it's all over. Like we're back to ground one, and I feel it could be a little bit of that. It could be a lot of what's around it.
I don't know,
but I like. Do you call him a game manager if he throws for over 300 yards?
So
you know what I mean?
This is what I was about to get to the point. If Brock Purdy continues to play this way, the Niners are the scariest team in the league to me. Because he is playing the way he is right now is the perfect formula at quarterback. It's not so much a game manager. Yes, you can have a game manager like a Jimmy Garoppolo with this defense and with these weapons, and you'll be very successful and you'll make the NFC Championship game. Hell, you might make the Super Bowl. But at the end of the day, it's going to take a little bit more explosiveness offensively to get you over the hump at that level. If Brock Purdy continues to manage the game well in terms of not turning the football over at all, playing clean, but then having that explosive nature with Debo and Kittle and Ayuk and McCaffrey, that ascends San Fran's offense more so than Jimmy Garoppolo could as a game manager. I don't think he's that though, Scotty. I still don't believe in Brock Purdy to that level.
Because what I've seen from him, he's not overly athletic, but he can get out of the pocket, right? And he can use his legs if he needs to get out of certain situations. So that's a part that you like. I guess my question is, like, if he's so good, like if he's this good, how did you have him buried behind Trey Lance? Like, not even Jimmy G. That Jimmy G's fair. I get it. Trey Lance, your first round pick. But, I mean, Brock Purdy has came out immediately and ran this offense 10 times better than what Trey Lance did. And I know this is a conversation for the offseason, but I think Philly Irish brought up a good point. You brought up a good point as well. It's like, what the hell do you do at quarterback if you're the San Francisco 49ers? Are you willing to let Jimmy G go now? Like, are you Trey Lance? Are you trading him, right? Like, what do you do? I don't know, but it's something for the offseason.
We won't know till the end of the season because it'll depend how far Brock Purdy takes them. If Brock Purdy loses this week or Brock Purdy gets shelled in an NFC Championship game, he probably took you to the end of the line as far as he can take. Then you kind of reboot and kind of say, hey, Trey was our guy to begin with. We like his ceiling more, blah, blah, blah. Brock Purdy wins you a Super Bowl and shows out in a Super Bowl. That's different.
The way you just talked about what Brock Purdy has kind of added since Jimmy G is kind of what we thought it would be with Trey Lance in a sense. It's like more dynamic, right?
Like
from the
5 quarters, four quarters of Trey Lance so
far. 4 or 5 quarters. So yeah, that's fair as well. I don't know where I'm at with Brock Purdy is I'm not completely down on him like I was saying, like I'm a complete non-believer, but he also didn't sway me over to the side to think that San Fran is going to beat the Eagles in the NFC Championship with Brock Purdy at quarterback.
Is the week.
That's where I'm at. This week,
weekend,
maybe we can talk after.
Can change or temper expectations for sure. Moving on to the Saturday night game, probably the highlight of the entire weekend in terms of entertainment and back and forth. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Dougie P, Trevor Lawrence, come from behind, down 27 at home against the LA Chargers. They come away with a win, 31-30 over Brandon Staley and Justin Herbert. Heads are going to roll in this one. There's no way Brandon Staley can come back from this as the Chargers head coach, in my opinion. If you want to start, go ahead. Trevor Lawrence, there's 4 picks in the first half. Looks like the moment's too big for the kid. Next thing you know, completely and utterly takes over a game. 4 passing touchdowns in the second half. Comes away with the win. Peterson looks like a genius. The stones, again, I know we talk about this a lot with Dougie P. The stones on this man are gigantic. Dude, that 4th down call, to call that timeout when Trevor checked out of the QB sneak, notice that the Chargers come up to stack the box and throw the flip out to ETN. The call to go for it for the 2-point conversion instead of take the extra point late in the game. He presses a lot of right buttons, man. And Doug Peterson, it's exactly what we talked about, right? Now, maybe the game didn't flow and start the way we thought it would, but what did we say heading into this one? Head coach matters in this game, and Doug Peterson gave Brandon Staley an absolute masterclass on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, heads have to roll it. Brandon Staley, he's got to go. He's got to go. It's crazy because last season I was very high on Brandon Staley towards the beginning of the year.
Right.
And then as it went on, he started showing his true colors because he sucks. He is so conservative with such a good quarterback.
Yep.
It makes me sick. Like, it makes me sick the way the Chargers run their offense, how they play scared. 4 interceptions with Justin Herbert. It should be 40-0 at this point. Like,
and
not only that,
a muffed punt on your 10.
And a muffed punt. Like, on top of it. And then at the end of the game, you see it's 4th and short, and you're in Jags territory. You're like right by the 50-yard line, and you're not going for it. And they're coming for you. Like, you have given up.
You knew at that moment the game was over.
You knew at that moment, and I looked around my dinner table because I was out at dinner with friends. I said, this mother sucker is gonna blow this game right here because he is a PUSSY. He is afraid to coach this team to wins. He'll take a loss as long as he feels like he didn't cost it with a risk. That's costing your team ultimately when you're not willing to take those risks. And it's crazy. Early on in the game, there was a lot of questions about why is Doug Peterson, living on the edge right now? Because that's how Doug Peterson lives. He won a Super Bowl that way. He's going to live by it, die by it. And I don't blame him because that's what won them this game. And you talk about what that does for your team, right? It's not only taking the risks. It's not just thinking outside of the box. It's enlisting that confidence in your team, in your quarterback. Enlisting that confidence in your quarterback that has thrown 4 interceptions in the first half. And he still didn't blink. That's how you know Doug Peterson's about business, man. And I was thoroughly impressed with this Jags resiliency, the way this team plays. If they had a little more talent, man, if they had a little bit better defense, maybe, just maybe, I would think differently about this game this weekend, even because this team is playing inspired, especially since the start of the second half of the season.
Yeah.
They're playing like one of the better teams in the NFL, especially that offense that is able to do things. You talk about ETN, you talk about Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, the turnovers, you got to eliminate those completely. but you just think of the dynamic ability that Trevor Lawrence brings as a quarterback. This is a guy that people are starting to remember now, I feel, that he won national championships with Clemson and that he hasn't lost on a Saturday since he started playing football at Clemson, right? This guy is a winner. And I think that's the biggest thing is because you pair him, a quarterback, a winner, with Doug Peterson, a risk taker, a fully confident, knows himself coach. And I think you get something great. And they got something to build on. If nothing else this season, the Jags have something to really build on there with that connection between those two. And it showed through this game. It showed the disconnect between between Herbert and Staley, and it showed the connection between Peterson and Lawrence ultimately because that trust is there. And whether that is Justin Herbert, I don't know what the check down issue is with Justin Herbert. I don't know if that's his coach telling him to not do that, watch the interceptions, something.
Right.
Go down the field, man. You have to go down the field. You have a rocket attached to your arm. You have to go down the field, but it's not going to happen with this coach at the helm. They got to get an offensive-minded coach in here to help Justin Herbert out, I think. Because it could turn bad if you continue this on, right? Brandon Staley's a defensive-minded guy. Maybe that's the problem, right? Because the defense hasn't looked that great either.
I mean, Scotty, I'm just backtracking through this game. First quarter, interception, touchdown. Interception, field goal. Punt, interception, touchdown. Punt, touchdown. Interception, punt, muffed punt, field goal. That is where the game changed right there. So at that point, you, I believe, have a 24. Yes, you have a 24 nothing lead. You get a muffed punt starting the drive at Jacksonville's 5. Jacksonville has done nothing offensively to make you believe they can go 95 yards and put points on the board here. Now, again, you came away with points with that field goal. I get it. But at that, you had a chance to put the final nail in the coffin. I'm going for it. You talked about how he's afraid. Scotty, if I'm up 24-0 and I have first and goal at the 5, I'm giving you 4 plays to get it. If I don't get it, I'm still up 24-0, and you got to go 95 yards late in the second quarter when your offense has shown me nothing. Instead, you keep it at that 3-possession, 4-possession game, essentially, where if it's 31, you're talking 5 possessions, essentially, almost. And that would have really basically sealed Jacksonville's fate. They kicked the field goal. And then Jacksonville obviously goes down and gets a touchdown late.
And see, Brandon Staley doesn't need to be fired just because he blew a 27 point.
No,
like that can be enough. That can be enough, but that's not the only reason.
I agree.
We can't forget that the Chargers, we picked the Chargers to win the AFC West. Well, some people picked them to win the AFC West, right? Picked them to be in the playoff picture solidified. They have stooped down to a level so low during the regular season that we were questioning if they were going to make it at all with all of that talent on the roster. Should never even have been in question. They should have never even been in this situation playing the deadliest team in the AFC. When you talk about seed 3 or seed 4 and lower, right? Jacksonville Jaguars are right there as the most deadly team that got into the playoffs, and you had to play them because you failed during the regular season too. You lost to teams that you ultimately shouldn't have lost to in the regular season. So he's just been a disappointment all around, and it kind of came to a climax in the playoffs, right?
It's a perfect way to put it. It was the build-up all year. It's why were me and you having a conversation on the downfall of this game for this organization could be their head coach and their play calling and his conservativeness and why his offense's team is so boring, right? And why then the fact that like he just hand delivers you the cherry on top by blowing a 27-point lead in the half. That's it, right? Like that's why you're gone. He'll probably be back, but he shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be, man. Don't waste your young quarterback's future, right?
No,
don't hold it up anymore.
And they have playmakers on defense, and you have Austin Eckler, and you have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Like they have pieces, dude. They shouldn't be boring. They shouldn't be conservative.
And look at it from this perspective. You also need to know that Justin Herbert is the guy, right?
Right.
We don't know 100% that Justin Herbert isn't at fault.
Right, hasn't won a playoff game yet.
We need to see what he looks like with a different coach because with Staley, he looks like a failure, right?
I agree. Let's get into this Sunday slate, and it starts off with a weird game. The Buffalo Bills escape the Miami Dolphins 34-31. Skylar Thompson gets the start. Oddly enough, Teddy Bridgewater was active for Miami, but they go with the third string rookie quarterback in Skylar Thompson. And somehow, some way, after going down 17-0 very early on in the second quarter, the Miami Dolphins find a way to turn over the Buffalo Bills multiple times, make them make mistakes, and come away with big fourth down conversions. Miami almost pulls off the upset in Buffalo, but it wasn't enough. Josh Allen and company escaped, like I said. What were your thoughts here? How do you feel about Buffalo moving forward? Because I got to be honest with you, man. This might have been the biggest disappointment of the weekend for me. I know they came away with a win. And I know if you're a Buffalo fan, that's all you're trying to do, survive in advance, right? Skylar Thompson hung 31 on you.
Yeah.
You blew a 17-point lead.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad, and it's not necessarily bad even. You shouldn't blow 17-point leads. It is bad. It is bad, but it's not as bad as the way Josh Allen played. Josh Allen looked like a complete question mark, and this is the guy that people have been touting around as the MVP all season, right? And I was on that train, and he's a good quarterback. I'm not saying that. But we might just need to slow ourselves down a bit because it looked like they were coming off the rails in that game. They were asking to lose that game. He throws 2 interceptions, and these were all around the same time. It's like he goes on streaks, right?
Oh, and the fumble.
He fumbled 3 times. He only lost 1, so he had 3 turnovers total for a touchdown, right? So that's my main concern coming out of this game. If Josh Allen is going to turn the ball over 3 times, the Bills are not making it to the Super Bowl. They're not making it to the AFC Championship. And my biggest concern with the Bills, Dylan, is that it feels like they've gotten worse as the season has transgressed. They had a nice little 6 or 7 game win streak mixed in there around the DeMar Hamlin time. But let's be honest, they were playing teams like the Dolphins without Tua or Dolphins with a beat up Tua, whatever the case may be. Not much competition, right? You have to ask yourself, when they come back from that DeMar Hamlin injury against the Patriots, do they win that game without the kick returns, the majestic kick returns? These are the things that I'm looking at and thinking about. They blew the doors off the Patriots in that game because they had 2 kick returns. If Josh Allen is playing like this, mind you, Stephon Diggs had over 100 receiving yards. Gabe Davis had over 100 receiving yards. They still only won by 3 because of Josh Allen. And that's a problem. Your quarterback can't be a detractor. If there is any starting quarterback in the NFL starting for the Dolphins in this game, the Dolphins win that game.
Yep.
If there is any starter in the NFL, it could be maybe not Zach Wilson. we'll throw him out of that category. Maybe Gardner Minshew. Maybe Gardner Minshew beats the Bills. I'm just speaking hypothetically there. That's how bad the Bills played. That's how many opportunities they gave to the Miami Dolphins. And it's crazy. That's not how you win.
That's the problem, Scotty. I'm still trying. That game was so weird to watch and take in and try to analyze. Miami scored 31. Skylar Thompson was 18 for 45. He threw 2 interceptions. Skylar Thompson was awful in this game, rightfully so. And you still gave up 31 in a 3-point win at home. That's where I'm getting confused. And to your point, it's what I brought up to you earlier on in the season, right in the middle of that Josh Allen MVP candidacy train, that Minnesota loss. And people wanted to talk about the 4th down play and Justin Jefferson. They couldn't stop Justin Jefferson. They lost that game because of Josh Allen. They almost lost a playoff game because of Josh Allen. He needs to clean things up if the Bills are going to keep advancing. Scotty, they will not beat the. I don't think they're going to beat the Bengals.
They will not.
The Bengals.
They will not beat them
on Sunday night. They will. Yeah. They'll be better. I'm not sold that Josh Allen is going to clean things up in a week span.
Agreed. I'm with you, man. It doesn't feel right when I was watching them, honestly.
Okay, time out. Here's a perfect example. You just said any other quarterback, maybe Gardner Minshew. Bro, if Miami's own starting quarterback plays,
Tua,
it might have been a rout.
Yeah. You turn the ball over like that against Tua, yeah. And you don't have those clock issues when you have your starting quarterback in there, right? At the end of the game. I know Mike McDaniel caught a couple bullets for that. Rightfully so, I get it. But at the end of the day, they didn't have their starting quarterback. And maybe if you do, you don't run into some of those delay of games, wasting timeouts, stuff like that at the end. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. It changes the whole game. It changes the whole game. And we watched it a few weeks ago. It's not like, oh, this was just a one-off. Dolphins played them close in Buffalo a couple weeks ago, right? Lost by 3 in that one, I believe.
My whole point is you don't get points for style in the NFL. We as Eagles fans know this, and it pisses me off when reporters and analysts want to say this and that about a win. I understand, Bills fans. My whole point is you didn't play. If this was Tua and you won by 3 and Josh turned the ball over and you escaped, I would say a win's a win. You played Scott a third round. What was he, 7th round undrafted? I don't even know when Skylar Thompson was selected. Rookie quarterback, his playoff debut, obviously, who was 18 of 45 and turned the ball over 2 times himself. And you survived by 3. This should have been a 45-point win, Scotty. I'm joking with, but you get my point. This should have been a complete and utter rout, and your star MVP candidate quarterback is the sole reason that was a ball game. The sole reason.
And look, I know the counter argument to that, to what we're talking about here, and we're talking about Josh Allen and his problem with turning the ball over. The counter conversation to that is, okay, that's him at his worst, so it won't be like that again. The problem with that, we can say that about Jalen Hurts, who threw 6 interceptions this season.
Right.
Josh Allen threw 14 interceptions this season. He was 3rd in the NFL, tied, with Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr, tied for 3rd for the most interceptions in the NFL, right? So it's not just an anomaly in the playoffs. Scotty. He turned the ball over all season.
It's not just the turnovers. You can't even say, oh, well, he threw for 350 and 3 touchdowns. So this wasn't a bad game where he turned the ball over and, maybe only threw 1 passing touchdown and struggled to throw completions down the field. No. When he wanted to turn things up, he was able to. The problem is the inconsistent play and the fact that he turned the ball over that many times. Okay. Yeah. But I digress. I'll move on. It's we'll see how they look against.
We'll see how he looks. We're gonna break down these games for this weekend on Saturday, and you'll see how we're feeling, and we'll see how it plays out ultimately. But not impressed with the Bills, to say the least. Not impressed.
Absolutely. Moving on to that 4:30 game. Actually got pushed back because of the Bills-Dolphins game, weird enough. The Giants upset the Minnesota Vikings 31-24 to put an end to Kirk Cousins and the Vikings season. You predicted this one right. I was off on it. I just did not like all the attention that this Giants team was getting as road underdogs.
I was feeling you. I was feeling you on that.
But they came out and they took care of business, man. Daniel Jones was almost perfect. Daniel Jones was incredible. Saquon Barkley looked like a brand new shiny toy that they have from his injury last year. Obviously, I know Saquon had a very good season this year. He looked spry. He looked like he had a lot of energy and a lot of bounce. And ultimately, it's fun. Kirk Cousins played a hell of a game. Like, that was the funniest part of it all. Kirk Cousins and that offense moved the ball. TJ Hawkinson had a hell of a game. What was New York able to do? They took away Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
And then in Viking fashion, they throw the ball for 2 yards on 4th down with the season on the line. As great as he was, as good as he was all year, as great as he was for 3.5 quarters in this one, it ends in Kirk Cousins fashion, and he throws a check down on 4th and long and only picks up 2 yards. It was the most Viking way to end a season that that you could have pictured.
You want to talk about trends? How about Jalen Reagor?
He's lucky his ass recovered it.
Oh my God.
Or it got recovered.
You saw him. He was fighting for his career to recover that one, man. That
over,
was
bro. He shouldn't have.
No, man, it was one of those things where, the Vikings' time to lose was coming. And honestly, they should have just lost that game back in the regular season a couple weeks ago when they played the Giants. So, just get it out the way, right? Because it's almost like they didn't get that loss out of the way before the playoffs, and it ultimately ended up happening there. We talked about this before the playoffs started, man. Who were the teams that looked like they could be the most fraudulent? We picked the Cowboys and we picked the Vikings. Vikings have now succeeded the Cowboys in that category, right? And it's for a rightful reason. Kirk Cousins, while he didn't play bad in this game, when it got to the big moment, he did shrink. I don't know if that's the offense, the play calling, whatever the case may be. Maybe he was just so used to going to Hawkinson all game that he forgot about Justin Jefferson. I don't know. But it's the same thing we saw all season. Just like you said, shut down Dalvin Cook, shut down Justin Jefferson. What will the Vikings do? They didn't know what to do. Their defense, as Philly Irish said, is soft. It's trash.
Yeah, that's
31st pass defense. You saw it on display there. They gave up 300 passing yards to Daniel Jones in that first matchup. That should have been the first clue to us that the Vikings don't have a very good pass defense, right? But no, I think it just kind of fulfilled the Vikings' destiny in a sense of being the most fraudulent, 13-4 team ever. Most fraudulent 13-win team ever. And you saw it by point differential. And I know we can't look to that for everything, but that was the clearest sign that you could look at and be like, this team is really fraudulent. But it's also just all the comebacks, right? They broke records of comebacks in a season. You shouldn't have to do that if you're a 13-win, that good of a football team, right? So it kind of came back to bite them finally, right? They didn't get off to a good start, and they weren't able to come back from that.
I'm glad you bring that up because context matters, right? When you're talking numbers, and if Minnesota would have won this game, and maybe they lose to San Fran or they make it to the NFC Championship somehow, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
And people want to talk about their point differential. Well, at that point, it doesn't really matter. But it's the same thing with Brandon Staley. It's the track record, and then you hand deliver the cherry on top. If Minnesota didn't have that ridiculous point differential, and no one viewed them as frauds, but they got upset by the Giants, we would have been like, wow, any given Sunday, right? Like playoff football. No. It's the fact that you and so many people saw it coming.
So true.
It's the fact that the point differential was there. The late game comebacks, the heroics had to be there for them to get to this point. And then what do? They shell up and they lose at home in that type of fashion. Kirk Cousins was 31 for 39. He didn't turn the ball over or didn't throw an interception. Kirk Cousins was fine. They put a bracket. The Giants put a bracket on Justin Jefferson. They didn't allow any big plays from him. And outside of TJ Hawkinson, no one else stepped up. They weren't able to establish Dalvin Cook in the running game. Adam Thielen, I think Thielen scored and he caught one ball down the sideline on a wheel route. Outside of that, Adam Thielen was a non-factor. When you look at what the Giants were able to accomplish offensively, you were spot on in your analysis before the game. Soft. The Vikings defense, their team, they're soft. You're able to beat up on them. The Giants averaged over 5 yards on the ground. Daniel Jones used the middle of the field and those quick hitters to those wide receivers. And they honestly, Scotty, they picked the Vikings apart. There's no other way to put it. They didn't have to beat them up and grind them out on the ground. No. They picked them apart through the air, up and down the field, and punched it in when it mattered. The Vikings got totally outclassed. Brian Dable, even more so, puts his name in the hat, name in the ring for Coach of the Year.
He is a really good coach. He is a
fantastic.
Really good, credit where it's due. He's a really good coach. Yeah.
Now, my condolences that comes to an end this weekend, but
absolutely. I got a question for you though. Just looking at this game, was this more a Giants win or more do we give, I know we got to give some credit to both sides, right? But was this more of a Vikings fulfilling their destiny as frauds, or was this more of the Giants stepping up to the plate and getting a win that they weren't supposed to? Or would you just say at this point, I guess this is a good way to ask it. Are the Giants a better team than the Minnesota Vikings outside of situation? Are they the better team? Are they the more talented team?
No. Can I call it the perfect storm, the perfect matchup?
Fair.
Can that work? Because
that is fair.
The Giants have a better defense than Minnesota. We've ripped Minnesota's defense apart, but let's not get it twisted that the Giants have some top 12 defense in the league. We just spoke with Paul Hembekides on the show that'll be released tomorrow. He gave you the numbers for New York defensively. They're 20 something against the pass, and they're 17th, 18th against the run. They are not great defensively. They're just a little bit tougher and stingier than this Vikings defense. They don't have many holes over the middle. Offensively, it's night and day. Are we okay, I know the Giants won this game. Are we joking? If we're talking talent perspective, that the Giants are a better offense than the Minnesota Vikings, you're kidding yourself at that point. I think what it's a perfect storm of the fact that they are fraudulent. They're soft defensively. Their coach calls a little bit of a soft game, and the Giants are very well coached, took the fight to Minnesota, and they took advantage of Minnesota's holes defensively. That's the best way I can phrase it. I do not believe that the Giants are a better can I say this? More talented. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're better. They're not more talented, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's what happened here. I think the Giants are just the better coach team. I think they came out and
they do not have the more talent.
No, not at all. And I think the other thing I wanted to point out here is just kind of looking at Minnesota's defense. It's kind of what everybody was saying about the Eagles' defense a couple years ago, is Malcolm Jenkins and Fletcher Cox, all those guys from the Super Bowl team. But when you look at Minnesota's defense, they have guys similar from that 2017 roster where they went to the NFC Championship. They still have guys that they're throwing out there. Maybe it's just coming of age and washed upness for these guys, right? You talk about Harrison Smith. He's been there forever. Donnell Hunter. Patrick Peterson, obviously he wasn't on the Vikings, but he's been in the league forever. Eric Kendricks, been there, right? Dalvin Tomlinson, been there. So, I'm looking at all of these different guys, and it's the same names. They need to revamp that defense. They need to get younger and get a little more influx of talent. I think we've been judging their defense and kind of that prowess of, the Minnesota Vikings defense is all right. We've been basing that off of a defense that was from, 2 years ago? The defense just isn't that good, and that was ultimately the weak point of their team. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones or Kirk Cousins, if you need to win a game today?
Kirk Cousins, I'm sorry.
Okay, yes, okay. I like it, though. That's an interesting one, though, right?
Yeah, I'm not going against Kirk in this matchup. What do you want me to say, man? Seriously, if Kirk Cousins would have played Josh Allen's game against the Giants, and that's why Minnesota lost, I would have been like, wow, Kirk Cousins was damn near perfect in this game outside of that last play. And whether that was by design, play calling, him shitting his pants, I don't know what the case was. That was horrifying to watch. Pretty funny. But who's more talented, Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones? Kirk Cousins. Who had the most fourth quarter comebacks in the season in the league this year? Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Who was 31 for 39 for 300 yards and no turnovers? Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was not the reason that the Vikings lost this game. He's the more talented quarterback. He's got the bigger arm. For that reason, I'll go with Kirk Cousins. I agree. I think softness, scheme, and defensively they got torn up. Moving on, Scotty, 2 more games to break down on the Super Wildcard weekend. Sunday night, Tyler Huntley goes to Cincinnati with the Ravens to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. 24-17 was the final of this one. Again, weird. I would call this one maybe the most boring game of the weekend. It had a very exciting game-winning play that occurred late in the third quarter or very early in the fourth quarter. Obviously, Tyler Huntley stretches the ball across the goal line. No idea what he was doing. You have 2 options in that situation. Okay, from the 1 yard line on third down, mind you, now 4th and goal. Third and goal from the 1. If you're at the 1 and the linebackers are off the line of scrimmage, it's just the defensive line, then you can jump over and try to reach across. If the linebackers are up and the safeties are up, pressing, everyone's going to get in there. You have to get low and go down. This dummy tries to jump over the line from the 1 with everybody up on the line of scrimmage. Gets taken back for 6. Next thing you know, game over. But ultimately, very boring. Not a great showing by the Cincinnati Bengals, but I do believe that they get things fixed. But 24-17 nonetheless. AFC North, I guess maybe we really shouldn't have expected anything different. It's always a grinded out type of game with those teams. But Cincinnati advances to take on Buffalo.
I think that's a good point there. It's the AFC North. It was just a grinded out game. And if you're looking at the way we're looking at this game versus the way we looked at the Buffalo Bills, for instance, Joe Burrow just didn't do that, right? He didn't come out and turn the ball over 3 times. He didn't put his defense in bad situations. This was just like a knockout, drag them out fight, right? And it came down to one play, right? Bengals make the play. Ravens didn't make the play, and Bengals ultimately win this game. I will say it was impressive from the Ravens, ultimately. Like, the defense, that defense is real, right? They paid Roquan Smith all that money. They had Marcus Peters back there with oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the other corner.
Marlon Humphrey.
Marlon Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
They got that pair back out there. The rookie Kyle Hamilton, the safety, he's really good. He's a turnover machine. They got something to build off of there. It's just this whole this whole Lamar Jackson thing that has their future totally up in the air. And I know there's a lot of talk. Why didn't he play? Why wasn't he on the sidelines? I know there's been a couple of excuses given out for that. My next topic that I would jump to in this game for the Ravens specifically is Coach Harbaugh. I mean, he's kind of costed them in some big moments this season. We talk about other coaches and what they do in these moments, right? But Harbaugh has made some questionable decisions. I get your point with Tyler Huntley, and I agree. Like, he made the wrong decision as well.
Why are you?
How does J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah.
How does J.K. Dobbins not get any touches, man? It's the same thing we talk about the Eagles sometimes, but we have Jalen Hurts. He's a guy that does push his way into the end zone. I don't know. It's just questionable to me. Tyler Huntley is not Lamar Jackson. He's not the leader of your team. Give it to J.K. Dobbins. He'd already scored from 2 yards out earlier in that game.
And it was third down. It wasn't fourth down.
It was third down. You have a whole other play that you can do. Like, if you want to kick the field goal, whatever the case may be. And that's the other interesting side of that. If they don't get that turnover, does he kick that field goal? I don't know.
You have to go for that.
That's something you know what I mean? That's something he did earlier on in the season. It's funny that you
bring up Harbaugh because he's the one, I think it was last year because you and I were doing Turf Talk together. Late in the season, I want to say, I think they were playing Pittsburgh possibly, and he goes for two when they were down by one.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about.
With no time left, an extra point would have gone to overtime, and we were like, wow, like, you really don't trust your defense at all. And they lost the game by one because of that, because they didn't get the and then the 2-point play was so weird. Like, he rolled Lamar to one half. It was very weird and very bad. But
with only one option.
It does bring up some question marks regarding Harbaugh. I'm looking at it from Cincinnati's standpoint.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because we're going to be breaking down these games this weekend.
Right.
But I'm looking forward with Cincinnati for the fact that they escaped at home. And it's scary. Because no defense is going to be able to limit Cincinnati the way Baltimore just did this past weekend. Joe Mixon, 11 for 39, P. Ryan 2 for 3 on the ground. They had 42 rushing yards between their running backs. Jamar Chase, 9 for 84. He scored a touchdown. He was fine. T. Higgins was 4 for 37. Tyler Boyd, 3 for 26. Mixon out of the backfield, 3 for 17. Joe Burrow only threw for 209 and 1 passing touchdown. They were severely limited offensively. You're not going to limit these skill position guys and Joe Burrow like this again, for my money. So that's why if you're Buffalo, I'm looking at this like, oh shit, like who knows?
And that's a great point, Dylan, because that's on the opposite side of what I was talking about earlier with Josh Allen.
Right.
Is you could look at that and be like, oh, well, that's is worse.
Like, that was Joe Burrow's bad game.
Right, that was the bad one. 209, he doesn't turn the ball over. Hey, that's what was talked about. It was early on in this game. I can't remember who was commentating, but I heard him say it. It was reported down from the Bengals coaching staff. So Bengals coaching staff has just talked about how Joe Burrow, when he goes out there, it's not just about the numbers. It's about not making certain plays, making the right play, not being a detractor, right? There was no point in this game where you're like, Joe Burrow just cost them the game. Right. No, it wasn't like that. Joe Burrow playing a clean game in this one against a tough defense that just wasn't allowing much, a stingy defense. He played a clean game, right? And he gave his team the best opportunity to win. They ultimately did. And so that's the opposite side, is when Joe Burrow has to shut down or when he's playing a tough defense, he's going to do everything that he can for his team to win the game. And whereas I look at Josh Allen, and I've seen it just too many instances where he is the reason they lose. Mm-hmm. Not that he's never the reason they win. A lot of the time he is the reason that they win. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that are like that, but then there's a lot of quarterbacks that are also the reason that their teams lose, and that's what separates them from the elites, right?
I love that point.
That's what I'm looking at.
Because I'd have to go back and look at their losses, but the Miami one earlier on in the year where he turned the ball over, the Vikings game where he turned the ball over and fumbled in the end zone and all that stuff. To your point, what Scotty's suggesting is most times he's the reason they win. He can be the reason that they're so dangerous and special. But you never really find a time, maybe here and there, but you never really find a time where Buffalo loses a game and the next day you come out and say their defense did it. Josh Allen was perfect. Josh Allen threw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over, and Buffalo lost the game. Most times, if Buffalo loses a game, the common denominator is the quarterback turned the ball over and played a sloppy game. And that's a trend, and that's something you don't want connected to your franchise quarterback, is what I'm trying to say. So not to keep piling on Josh Allen, they are playing at home against the
He's
Bengals.
a really good player. Don't get it twisted. He's in our top 3 quarterbacks. Like, it's not like that. It's just you got to correct these things when you're in the postseason, when you're talking about every little detail matters in these playoff games. So those turnovers just can't happen. It's what we've been harping about all season with every single team, right? Turnovers are so important.
Moving on to the final game, the Monday night matchup, Dallas and Tampa. The Cowboys come away with a 31-14 win over Tom and the Bucks. I was wrong. Scotty was wrong. A lot of people were wrong, but I come on. This game went the complete opposite direction that I thought it would. I thought that Dallas would be able to move the ball. I said that to you on Monday night's episode, but I expected Tom and that offense to be able to move the ball up and down the field at will against the Cowboys defense. They were not able to do so. Tom Brady, we just trashed Josh Allen for being a detractor to his team. The conversation needs to be had, and obviously it's going to be a trending topic all offseason. Will he be back? Will he not? I think Tom Brady's career is over. I think Monday night was it. We've had these same question marks about Tampa Bay and him and his play all year long. I don't know why I allowed myself to buy into the hype that he'd be able to do anything different than my eyes told me this past Monday night. He was horrific. He was scared of the pressure. He was underthrowing receivers. He threw a couple balls in the dirt. And you know what bothered me? For being the GOAT, for jobs never finished, even when they win Super Bowls, jobs never finished. You need to improve. For being that leader, he lacked leadership on Monday night. I saw a lot of finger pointing and yelling, and I'm not saying the receivers were perfect, and he was never right in a situation where a throw looked off. One play sticks out to me perfectly. It was still the beginning of the game. I want to say maybe it was 14-0 Dallas. The game was still well within reach, or 12-0, excuse me, because of the missed extra points. And he's got his tight end streaking over the middle of the field, and Micah Parsons coming down the pipe at him. But he doesn't even get touched. He's not getting touched yet. And he throws it at the dirt, 3 yards in front of the receiver who's going upfield. And he yells and points at the receiver like he wanted him to sit down. No, bro. You backpedaled instead of stepping into the pressure and threw one at the dude's feet. That's a lack of leadership. And from him at this point of his career, in this moment, in this playoff game, you retired, then unretire. You go through this big public divorce, right? To show up in that moment so small was really what I've talked about with Ben Roethlisberger in the past and Aaron Rodgers at times. Seeing the greatest quarterbacks of my generation deteriorate before my eyes. Like, what was he doing?
The one thing we were right about on that Monday night show was the fact that if the Bucks lose this game, it would be because Tom Brady, we realized that he is washed.
Right.
He's washed, man. Like he's done. And I won't go as far as to say that, he's not going to play again. I don't know. He shouldn't play again because like you said, you've already pointed out everything that I would point out. Just the short, the short throws, the underthrown balls, the lack of just being able to take a hit or being willing to take a hit. I don't even know what to call it other than what I said earlier. P-U-S-S-Y.
Yeah.
P-U-S-S-Y. Micah Parsons is coming towards you and you just throw it in the dirt. He did that several times in that game. And so at that point, if you're Tom Brady, you have to ask yourself, man, if you're doing that to take care of your body, rightfully so. You're 45, however the hell old you are. You don't need to play then. You're costing your team. Like at that point, right? It was kind of disturbing to watch, but
don't give me the play calling.
it
sucks
also
for Tampa Bay.
it also fulfilled what we did see all season. It's not like they turned into somebody else, right? They were the same team, but yeah, I was looking like 66 times. I get it, you're down in the game, but like goddamn, 66 passes,
right? And everything's conservative. Everything screens underneath, whatever the case was. Byron Leftwich, I believe he's, or there's rumors that he's getting relieved of his duties in Tampa Bay. He should. He was really bad all season. He was bad in this playoff game. But you go to the other side, you go to Dallas, dude. I get it was probably the performance of the week. Like I know Trevor Lawrence had the comeback. And threw 4 touchdowns in the second half, but he did throw 4 interceptions. I know Daniel Jones played a very good game. Dak Prescott and his offense probably had their performance of Wild Card Weekend, and then it hurts a little bit in the chest area to admit that, but it was they were dominant, dude. They were what the cockroaches try to come out and claim they are every week. Now they're not that every week, but they were damn good. They were creative on 4th down. That bootleg on 4th and goal. That wheel route to CeeDee Lamb with the crosser over the middle. Now Carlton Davis gets turned around, but ultimately it's a great play design on 4th and 8. Dak's accuracy, the connection with Dalton Schultz, they were damn good on Monday night.
They were good, man.
Tampa wasn't.
They looked the part. And
till they run.
You just got to give credit to them, right? You got to get. It's not that we were going into that game saying Tampa Bay's a better team. Like, no, not a chance.
No,
right?
I said the opposite.
We just knew that the Cowboys were known to choke in these situations. They finally showed up, man, and you got to give them credit where it's due for that. Dak, he played inspired. He looked like he was ready to win, right? Like he looked like a winner in that game, and he played like it, 25 for 33. But it's just one of those things where, like, we saw that against Philadelphia on a Sunday night, towards the end of the season, and then the next week we saw the other side of Dak, and then the next week we saw once again that side of Dak again.
Round is huge for a lot of teams.
Yeah, it's gonna either debunk or fulfill a lot of narratives. Right.
And like I say that, and people are like, "Well, duh, it's win or go home, NFC Championship." That's not what I mean. I mean going forward next year and years beyond with your core.
Dak,
we talked about Brock Purdy in San Fran, right? And I said you did it against Seattle, and I'm not trying to take it away from Brock Purdy, but I like this weekend against Dallas' defense, I'll learn something. Same thing here.
Yeah,
I tried to overestimate what this 8-9 Bucs team was. At the end of the day, they were an 8-win team, and that's what they look like. So show me it against San Francisco now. Because now if you turn around and it looks like you ran into a buzzsaw next weekend, he throws 2 interceptions in the first half and they lose by 15. Congratulations on your beatdown against Tom. But then
the 8-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? You know what I mean? Like, they are the worst record in the playoffs.
A lot of teams.
The Bucs did have the worst. Like, to be fair, on the other side, the Bucs did have the worst record in the playoffs coming in. So
I'll throw this to you. To be fair, I'll throw this to you. It's not a wild card recap. We can talk more about it this weekend with expectations, but to be fair, to show that we're not homers and that everybody else is judged but our own, since we're sitting here talking about other quarterbacks, in your mind and for your opinion, if the Eagles were to get upset, which I already told you, I don't think there's a chance in how that happens. If they were, is Jalen Hurts' future here a little more questioned
than Dak's?
Yeah.
Are you saying if the Eagles lose,
like I'm saying, like I'm trying to be fair across the board. I'm saying that we're questioning if Dak loses this week, is his future and Dallas' future in jeopardy? If Brock Purdy looks like he gets hit with a buzzsaw this week, is there no question that he's out next year? Jalen Hurts, 1 seed, MVP year. If you lose to the New York effing Giants at the Link with all these Super Bowl aspirations, is he and this Eagles team under scrutiny as well? Like, are we hypocrites to say, like, we would be hypocrites to say, no, that wouldn't matter. He's good for next year.
What I would say about Jalen
I don't mean to say that, like, he won't be back. Obviously, he'll be back after the year. He's already solidified that. But there will be scrutiny. There will be pushback.
So what I would say as far as Jalen Hurts, like, my questions wouldn't be the same as they would be for Dak or for Brock
because
Purdy. So like
Dak's been around longer. Yeah, sure.
Dak's been around longer. Brock Purdy's a flash and flash of lightning in the jar. But Jalen Hurts, my questions would immediately, because if the Eagles lose this game to the Giants, it's because Jalen Hurts is injured and they're not able to play their full game, right? My worry with Jalen Hurts would be his health as a mobile quarterback. The last 2 seasons, right? Get to that final part of the season, he's injured. He was injured last year with the hurt ankle going into the playoffs. This year, it's the shoulder. So that would be my question mark. That would be where my head goes after dealing with Carson Wentz. Like, we need our quarterback in the biggest moments. If he's not there, what do we do? What does our future look like? That's where my questions would be with him. But it wouldn't be the same as Dak, where Dak has been to the playoffs how many times now?
Right.
And has
I don't even
two playoff wins.
I'm just trying to keep. And my whole point is, disclaimer, everybody. Spoiler alert. They're not losing, so like this point doesn't matter, right? I know we're going to clip all these and say what an idiot this kid was if something goes south this weekend, but they're not losing this game, so this won't matter. That's not my point. My point is, like, we talk Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert hasn't won a playoff game, right? People talk social media quarterback. Yeah. Would you say Justin Herbert is a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts?
It's tough now. I mean, talent-wise, arm talent, yes. Arm talent, yes.
Right.
Quarterback, I mean, decision-making, like with
I agree.
I don't know. I don't know.
But is, we had
arm talent, yes.
We come on the show and we talk about these quarterbacks, young or been there, and we say moving forward, if he can't get the job done, blah, blah, blah. My point is, if they were to get upset in the first round against a New York Giants team, should other people have these conversations like we're having about other people's quarterbacks? That was my whole
if he comes out and looks like Jalen Hurts from last season and is only, narrow sighted, only locked in on one receiver first option, then I think those questions do come in. Yeah. So to answer your question, if you see that same Jalen Hurts looks like a deer in headlights last year in Dallas when he threw a pick six against Trayvon Diggs, then you'll have your question marks. But if he comes out, looks like the leader, is running the offense the way we've been doing all season, I see no reason why. The reason we have these questions about Dak is because he led the league in interceptions in 12 games played, right? And then Brock Purdy's just a rookie that was drafted, the last pick in the draft.
Say that again?
Led the league in interceptions, only 12 games played. That is Dak Prescott. That is why I say Dak Prescott is ass. If Dak Prescott comes out and he has a game similar, he doesn't have to throw for 304 touchdowns and no interceptions. If he comes out and plays winning football against the 49ers, doesn't cost his team the game, I'll throw some respect on Dak's name. I'll stop calling him ass. That's where I'll go with it.
Can I share a quick story with you before we wrap up here? And it's just about, if I knew the names, if I knew them, I'd share the video, I'd tag them if I could. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. But I just see them on our TikTok. They're an NFL. They're a sports podcast. A couple guys, right? Big following. Like, congrats to them. I know the one's a Giant, two are Giants fans, one's a Cowboys fan. They all, most of them bash on the Eagles. Whatever. That's not my beef. Literally right before we went live, we're talking about Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott here, right? So before we go live, their TikTok comes up after, and it's this past week after Daniel Jones and Dak win their games. And the Giants guy is talking about how Daniel Jones has solidified himself as, the future quarterback in New York. The Cowboys fan chimes in, and he's correct at the moment. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's saying how, like, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, like these guys are better quarterbacks. Daniel Jones has been good, but he's not the future. And I'm like, oh, damn, I agree with this guy. And then he slips in at the end, and he's dead serious. He goes, but Daniel Jones is never going to win you a Super Bowl. That's why you need a quarterback, or you won't win a Super Bowl in this league without a top tier quarterback. That's why you need a guy like Dak Prescott. And then I just dropped my pal. I was like, well, what?
A guy like Dak Prescott.
So listen, it's entertaining as hell to watch these guys go back and forth. But one side is Daniel Jones is the future in New York, and he's going to lead them to great things. And the other is you need a QB like Dak Prescott.
Need a QB like Dak Prescott who has not won anything.
Listen, that's why everybody, you should tune in to Turf Talk every week, because you will never hear some dumbass shit out of my mouth like that. but nonetheless.
Hey, and same thing goes, there's talking heads on TV, man. I mean, my mom, she's in the comments right now. She sends me these nonstop. Oh, Andrew, whoever from this channel said this, and Nate Burleson said this. I don't care. These guys are saying things for ratings, man. We're saying this thing. Yeah. We're saying this stuff because we love watching football. We love talking about what we see.
Yep. And hopefully the ratings come second.
Let them talk. Let them talk. Sir. But that's funny, man. Get you a quarterback like Dak
send it
Prescott.
To you right when we hop on here, because
one playoff win in 7 years.
I'm listening to the Cowboy fan, and I'm like, wow, like I agreed with him. I'm like, yeah, dude, like this Giants. In my head, I'm like, this Giants kid's an idiot, right? And then he goes,
God, that podcast would be Dak Prescott.
And the rest of the room, after he said Dak Prescott, the rest of the room was like, what? Like, but it was.
It's you a quarterback like Dak.
Yeah.
You can lead the league in interceptions in just 12 games.
Yeah, that's a good advertisement for him.
It's the commercial.
It's his political ad. With that being said, Scotty, that is going to wrap up our wild card weekend recap. Guys, we will be back live with you this Saturday morning for NFL Turf Talk to break down the entire divisional round. We'll also be doing Eagles pregame live for you, specifically on the YouTube channel. Also, tomorrow on the YouTube channel, we're going to tweet out the link and all that great stuff. But we do have a special Eagles Giants preview ready for you, featuring myself, Scotty, 97.5 The Fanatic Zone, Connor Thomas, as well as ESPN Zone, Paul Hembekitis, as they both break down this matchup for you on Saturday night. We'll get that out on the YouTube channel specifically, so stay tuned for that. You can find all of our great stuff all of our great content over on @DSM_media. Hit that follow button on Twitter. We greatly appreciate it. Click the subscribe button on YouTube. We're on Facebook, IG, TikTok, all that great stuff. Wherever you follow us, we greatly, greatly appreciate it. For myself, for Scotty, and for DSM, have a great rest of your night.
Go Bird.